Hello and welcome to Ani's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Specter of Shepherd's Chine. Holly Arnold stood at the edge of Shepherd's Chine, her breath misting in the crisp October air as twilight bled into the horizon. The Isle of Wight's southwestern coast unfolded before her, rugged and wild, its cliffs plunging into the churning sea below. Shepherd's Chine itself, a narrow, wooded ravine slicing through the landscape, seemed to exhale an ancient stillness, its shadowed depths swallowing the last rays of sunlight. She had come here chasing whispers, fragments of folklore she'd uncovered in dusty archives, but now, with the wind tugging at her coat and the distant roar of waves echoing up the Chine, unease called tight in her chest. A local historian by trade, Holly thrived on untangling the island's past, its Celtic roots, its Roman relics, its Saxon ghosts. Shepherd's Chine, though, was different. The locals avoided it after dark. They spoke of flickering lights, disembodied voices, and a specter that appeared when the moon hung full. Holly wasn't one for superstition. She dismissed the tales as embellished myths meant to scare children. Yet here she was, flashlight in hand, descending the muddy path into the ravine, driven by a curiosity she couldn't shake. The air grew heavier as she went, thick with the scent of damp earth and salt. Trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches twisting into shapes that seemed almost alive, reaching for her with skeletal fingers. Her boots slipped on wet stones, and she steadied herself against a moss-slick rock. A sound like a sigh drifted through the Chine, faint but unmistakable. She froze. The wind, she told herself. Just the wind. But then she saw it. A shadow flickered at the edge of her vision, too deliberate to be a trick of light. She swung her flashlight toward it, the beam slicing through the gloom. Nothing. Only trees and mist. Her pulse quickened. She was alone, or so she thought. The feeling of eyes on her, unseen and unrelenting, prickled her skin. She pressed on, deeper into the Chine, where the path opened onto a desolate beach strewn with pebbles and seaweed. The sea stretched up before her, vast and restless, its waves crashing against the shore with a rhythm that felt oddly deliberate. And there, at the water's edge, stood the figure. It was tall and possibly so, its form cloaked in shadow, wavering as if caught between worlds. A hood of darkness shrouded its face, and the air around it shimmered, bending like heat rising from asphalt. A low, guttural chant emanated from it, the sound vibrating in Holly's bones, ancient and incomprehensible. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The figure turned, its gaze if it had eyes locking onto her with a force that pinned her in place. Terror surged through her, raw and primal. She stumbled back, her flashlight slipping from her grasp, its beam spinning wildly across the beach. The chanting grew louder, insistent, clawing at her mind. She ran. The path blurred beneath her feet as she fled, branches snagging at her clothes, mud sucking at her boots. The chant followed, relentless, echoing inside her skull. She didn't stop until she reached her car, slamming the door and fumbling with the keys. Her hand shook as she glanced back at the Chine. Silent now. Empty. But the specter lingered in her mind. Sleep eluded her that night. The figure haunted her, its eyeless stare burned into her memory. She tossed beneath the blankets, replaying the encounter. A ghost? A hallucination? Something worse? At dawn, exhaustion gave way to resolve. She needed answers. Holly threw herself into research, scouring the island's archives for anything tied to Shepherd's Chine. Old maps showed the ravine marked with cryptic symbols, faded ink hinting at its significance. Historical records were sparse, but folklore collections brimmed with tales. The Chine, it seemed, had once been sacred to the island's early Celtic inhabitants, a place where the veil between worlds thinned, a gateway to the other world. One legend stood out, a ritual, performed every 7 years under a full moon to appease the spirits of the land. A human sacrifice chosen from the tribe, bound to a stone altar in the Chine and left for a guardian spirit to claim. The description of this guardian chilled her, tall, cloaked in shadow, its form fluid and indistinct. Exactly what she'd seen. It was a story. Just a story. but the pattern of disappearances she found in the records every 7 years, always in October, always near the Chine, nodded her skepticism. Missing tourists, unexplained drownings, brushed off by authorities as accidents. The next full moon was 2 days away. She sought out Agnes, the island's oldest resident, a woman whose cottage sagged under the weight of time. Agnes's eyes, sharp despite her years, widened when Holly mentioned the Chine. You saw it, Agnes rasped. The Specter. What is it? Agnes's hands twisted in her lap. The guardian of the Chine, bound there by blood. The ritual ended centuries ago, but the spirits don't forget. Every 7 years it rises, hungering for what was promised. That's impossible, Holly said. The sacrifices don't happen now. Agnes's gaze darkened. People vanish, girl, every 7 years. The island keeps its secrets. Some still honor the old ways. Some pay the price. You're saying it's real? That it takes people? It's bound to the Chine, but it's restless. If it doesn't get what it wants, it'll take more. You've felt it, haven't you? It's marked you. She left Agnes's cottage dazed, the old woman's warning ringing in her ears. She should leave the island. Forget the Chine. But something stubbornness, perhaps, or the Chine's strange pull kept her rooted. Following night, Holly returned to Shepherd's Chine. Armed with a camera and recorder, she descended the path, the moon's glow filtering through the mist. The air thrummed with tension, the trees whispering secrets she couldn't decipher. She reached the beach, her breath shallow. The Specter waited. Its form was sharper now, fed by the moonlight, its chant a hypnotic pulse that tugged at her soul. She snapped a photo, the flash briefly illuminating it to void where a face should be, endless and ravenous. The Specter turned, and the chant ceased. Silence pressed against her eardrums. Then it moved, a swift, fluid, a shadow stretching across the beach. Holly's legs betrayed her, heavy as stone. It was upon her, its cold breath grazing her neck. She screamed. Leave her, a voice, human, commanding. The Specter recoiled, flickering. A man stepped forward, hooded, clutching a staff etched with runes. He thrust it upward, and light blazed from its tip, forcing the Specter back. It shrieked, dissolving into the mist. Holly collapsed, gasping. The man faced her, his features hidden. You shouldn't be here. Who are you? A guardian. I keep the Specter bound. Bound, you mean the sacrifices? They're real. We don't kill, he said. Not anymore. We offer tokens, relics, to sate it. But every 7 years it demands life, we give it, or it takes everything. You're insane, she spat. I'll expose this, try, he said. The Specter's marked you now. It'll follow unless you appease it. He vanished into the trees. Holly meant to leave. She packed frantically, the chant echoing outside her window as the Specter loomed in the street, its hunger palpable. Escape seemed feeble. It would follow, unless she ended it. The law clicked into place, the ritual, the binding, the blood. A final sacrifice could break the cycle. She knew what it demanded. Under the full moon, she returned to the Chine, calm despite the dread gnawing at her. The Specter stood waiting, its chant softer now, expectant. She faced it. Oh, I know your truth. You're trapped. Let me free you. She stepped forward, and light erupted where they touched. The ground shook, the Specter unraveling into shadow and wind. Silence fell. The guardian emerged, awestruck. You broke it. It was never the monster. The ritual was. Now it's done. She left the Chine, the island's secrets fading behind her. The end. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.